The subject of this video is injuries, but I couldn't resist touching on other topics, each one a potential can of worms, so the video got longer and I had to split it into two. As with the RVH video, I won't be looking at overdrive much, but this is what it does, and this is what it prevents. The second half will look closer at skate construction, overdrive, and how slip-outs like this combined with landing gear slide can lead to injury. Here's something similar. Later I'll mention this nose spray that you can barely see in the last two still frames. It indicates a partial boot out. We'll begin by looking at your landing gear, which started out as inner leg protection, evolved into cushioning for the improved butterfly style, and has now also become a handy surface to slide on. In fact, some goalies will apply product to enhance the slide. Here's a Warrior landing gear outlined in purple, and they've added a plastic cover on the knee if you want mega slide. The piece is removable. Because so much of the game is now played on your knees, the landing gear is heavily used, and proper design would dictate that it be one piece shaped to the leg and knee. One advantage among many being that it would cushion the knee better. But as with other equipment, NHL rules have locked in the incremental evolution of this piece. Among other design choices, Warrior has altered the mandated brakes in their own way, shown by the green arrows. The mess that is the landing gear could make for a whole other video, but I'm going to focus on the slide, which also gives you momentum to recover easier and allows you to cover back and forth across the crease. Here's a nice double push, which, by the way, you can easily do in one push with overdrive. Here's Georgiev pushing out from an RVH, and his right leg lifts to a very low angle for a solid push left, with the slide extending the move those few inches necessary for the save. See how cleanly that right foot works for a super smooth move with the hands in place. Few goalies can do this, especially under this kind of pressure. And from goalies with the best flexibility and mobility, like Buffalo's superb new goalies, Levi and Luukkonen, you'll see some great lateral coverage. But it's important to know that the slide can also work against you to cause problems, including injury problems. We'll look at a lot of replays, but let's start with a standard deke. Bob's left leg drops first on Hall's fake, and he tries to stop the slide with the left heel. When you're in a wide stance, your weight is all on your inside edge and pushing hard to your left and right. And when you're facing a breakaway with the legs fully loaded for a deke, there is a ton of power pushing out. That is a lot of pressure on that one edge, so if it's dull or has a bald spot or the ice breaks or if you disengage the edge, that foot is going to slide out a lot, like the left foot does here. You're releasing all of that stored power, and when the leg drops to the landing gear, it will slide more, since that's what the landing gear does. Here's the same thing with Shesterkin. You disengage the edge, drop to your landing gear, and you'll slide. And if that leg is heavily loaded, you'll slide a lot, very quickly. Wall quickly realizes his mistake, but the slide can be so fast that you'll fully widen out. Here's a variation for goalies who don't have the flex or don't want to use it. They'll lock the legs into a V and fall forward to limit the strain, ending in a faceplant. But folding that back leg to limit the strain also makes it hard to stop the slide with the heel, a very useful move. I'm going to detour in this video a few times, right now to show a better way to push off with the heel and widen out that is not as stressful as a standard move. The goalies all use the heel nicely to try and stop the slide. Why? Because the heel is the narrowest part of the skate, so that's where you get the quickest access to a lot of edge. See how much snow they kick up. It's a great move even with overdrive because lifting the toe relieves some pressure from the stretch. Pushing off with the heel can work just as well. I've been asked a lot, why not put an overdrive blade on the heel? Well, it's not worth it. You've already seen that you have access to a ton of edge, but you have to use the heel properly. And pushing off of it requires some practice time because we're programmed to push off with the toe. David Riddick is superbly athletic, or he was before his injuries. Here he gets a double push sort of off the heel, but his blade stays flat. When we push off from the toe, the heel lifts to transfer more power. When we do a stop or a push with the heel, the toe has to turn up, otherwise you're really missing out. Here his body barely moves laterally 2, maybe 3 feet, but he could get a whole lot more. Here's a skate I did with some friends. I've had this info up on the site for maybe 10 years. It's all on the backdoor page, but I still don't see the move being used. You can get a pretty good push off the heel if you rotate the toe up, and then you'll have all the blade you need. I am not flexible, and the move to my blocker side is a lot weaker, but I still did a full cross crease move with my chest up and hands working, enough to clear the rebound straight into the slot, and then be in a recovery position. It may look like a nothing move, and it sort of is because it's easy, with 2 other big advantages, coverage and safety. Here's a slow-mo to my trapper side, with better form, cleaner recovery, but I was still leaving the stick behind. Here's Ingram with the standard move. The pushing foot stays flat, and then into the Chinese splits on both groins, with a messy recovery. And Demko, I'll show why these splits are so stressful. And another great save, with Georgiev to the trapper side. But this is an elite level stretch with a ton of stress on the back and groin, and you'll likely end up in a faceplant. Every so often I'll see an NHLer using the backdoor move, but it's rare. Here's Elvis doing one. Nice width, no faceplant, and he's back on his feet. Here, Blackwood sort of did the move, but twisted late and landed funny. Twist that foot up on the push. Do it at half speed and practice because this looks uncomfortable. Here's JSO Ben from years ago with a full stretch and perfect form, and he's also wearing overdrive. He did well until overdrive was outlawed. That summer about 20 NHLers were wearing it. Another 10 were ready to put it on. Maybe 30 were using it in the A, as well as a lot of guys in Europe and then Major Junior. I'll take a closer look at all that some other time. Now, with the backdoor move, since you push off the heel, the move works easier going backwards. Like on these, Grubauer gets a soft double push and almost flips up that back foot. He needs only 2 more inches, but then he reverts to a full Chinese splits. Again, a full cross crease move with the hands working and a clean recovery. This is a fantastic save with a few inches more of reach, hands working, and his body in a recovery position. But this move is so elite that maybe only 2 or 3 other goalies in the NHL can do it. But for how long? Because they're young and there's a ton of stress involved. Here's another. The snow spray at the toe indicates reduced grip, but he's so wide and his momentum has transferred most of his weight, so there's no slip back. The reason I can get almost similar distance with very average flex is because the backdoor move puts you into the old style splits, reversed, so the hips line up naturally, your upper body can stay straight, and you're on the much stronger quads and hamstrings for heavy duty protection. I showed on the injury page that our body is not made to widen out like this. Our legs are made to swing forward and back in the narrow range of the walking and running motion, and our muscle structure reflects this priority with the heavy quads and hamstrings. I also showed how the Chinese split stresses the body more than the standard splits, forcing the legs far outside the normal swinging range and placing the load on the weaker groin muscles. One full group is shown here on 2 legs. And when you strain your upper body to get the hands moving, the stress on your lower back really increases by pulling on the all-important psoas muscle, extremely difficult to treat. See how the bottom connects to your thighs, so widening out both legs pulls on both of them. The standard widening out move starts with stretching of the groin and then arching of the neck and back, and tugging on the psoas, all of it relieved by falling forward and pulling the legs together, which realigns the body into something akin to standing up. This makes the faceplant the #1 all-time groin saver, although it's not much of a goaltending move. Still, it gets used a ton, so you might want to refine it, but it will never be a thing of beauty. Here's Hildeby nicely adding in the trapper. It's not as pretty as the full frontal splits, but almost as effective. And Levi always looking sharp, despite his right foot slipping out. And to end the move, don't forget the scorpion. I'd say the optimal height is 6 to 12 inches, usually higher the more time they have, but you never know. Later we'll look at how overdrive helps you stop sharper. The faceplant is one size fits all, and you don't need much flex. Here's Jack Campbell obviously playing hurt, easing down with his hands, staying narrow, doing a nice job of getting one leg to the post, scissoring the other leg in. Expect some angry pick and shovel action if you make the save. However, with the backdoor move, as well as placing the load on the great big quads and hamstrings, the groin and only one psoas get only a light workout. There's very little back or neck arching, there's rarely a need for a faceplant, and you might even make a big save. On this stretch to our right, the left quad and right ham are marked in black, indicating they're stretching. The left ham and right quad are marked in pink, indicating they're compressed but can still be flexed for support. She's not widening out, so the groins aren't doing much. Neither is the right psoas, and the left one is stretching just a bit. Here, she's widening right out on both groins, but leaning forward to reduce pressure on the psoas. Keeping the chest straight in a backdoor move is not a problem, but if you widen out on your groin, that will also pull the psoas tight and could be big trouble. Philipp Grubauer is a super goalie who also owns the world's record for resiliency, because he's somehow come back stronger from multiple ugly injuries. Here's the latest. He's a little fragile, but his comebacks are superhuman. The stress involved in the standard cross crease move makes it very tough to practice, and I would not work it more than 6 aside per day, which makes it difficult to smooth out for safety and to perfect for usefulness. It also makes it difficult to maintain because your moves are never static. They're either improving or degrading every day. The move can be hit or miss during game time, with goalies who can fully widen out, sometimes unable to pull the trigger, or even opting to stay narrow. Here's the key point. You pushed along your blade to the heel. You're right there, so dig the heel in to push some more. There's tons of blade, and give the foot a twist up, like a key turning, because your legs, hips, and upper body will twist as well. It may feel like a leap of faith at first, but just ease into it. Ottinger does a nice VH and push with the left foot almost turning up. He wants to because that will relieve the pressure, but you have to flip it. Dig the heel in, push, and give it a turn. Skinner gets the legs right, but the upper body doesn't twist. Anyone can do the move with a bit of practice. The protection offered by the quads and hams, along with the natural swing of the hips, allows you to safely practice the backdoor move a lot. I squeezed in practice time when I could, when the play was up ice, and once during this warm-up for a 2-hour skate that I recorded. The move was starting to work nicely to my trapper side, and with real practice time I might have cleaned it up, speeded it up, and worked on my stretching. Practice time is crucial to get a move working safely. You need to slow it down. Work out the timing of all your body parts, smooth the hitches, find the weak points, fix your hands, automatize it so you can see the puck again, and then maybe speed it up, slowly and safely to see how your body reacts given prior strains. And integrating a move into your game comes with mistakes, starting with spotting the plays it works on in the heat of the moment. On the day I recorded, I used the move quite a bit, and a lot didn't make this cut. When it's safe, I'll preload the move with a VH to avoid getting caught flat-footed and to cover the 5-hole. Here, my right leg double clutches. It goes back up instead of staying low in the VH, and it cost me. Here, the right leg drops and stays set for the push. If you can get the angle right, the VH does work for players coming straight in. He's a right shot, so high blocker is an easy option if you want. I explained all that on the shooters page, so a left VH works here, if you get your angle right. Quickly, shooters have strong and weak shooting options, and if you're very sharp, you can tailor that coverage with the VH and then an easy recovery instead of defaulting down in a butterfly. I've seen Bob's do it often. It's a very sharp play, and I think he's alone on this one. Keep this one in mind for later in the video because it was a save, but for the pads, I'll look at how a common design flaw can cost you goals. So if you have time, try the move. You'll get all the distance without insane flex. You'll widen out without the subsequent faceplant, and your body will thank you. Now, let's get back to the landing gear. I'm thinking the full frontal splits are one of the most stressful self-inflicted moves in sport. An unnatural spread on ice at top speed. And when you drop to your landing gear for even more slide, the jolt is very fast and very sharp, stretching the groin muscles far more than they were made for. The stress on the groin and hips is obvious, but eventually it will all lead to the back, especially the lower back, the weak point of the human body. Here's a subtle play where the landing gear causes a quick knee spread that can arch your back for a nasty jolt. And here's Vasilevsky, just returned from being out for months with a lower back problem. A lot of the time, it's hard to tell just what was injured. The weak link in the chain can be anywhere from the knee up to the groin to the hips, and then up the back. Here it could be the groin or lower back, but it started with that knee spread. This knee spread is constant, even when you're just kneeling there, because of the downward and outward forces at work. Groin tension holds your butterfly together, and releasing that tension will result in widening out. That cord pushes off the post into a butterfly, but then needs to reverse back to the post. He's sliding right with no time to lift the right skate for a push back, so he kicks out the left leg, but that force has an equal and opposite reaction on the right leg. So he widens out into a face plant and covers up nicely, followed by some wild pitchfork action. You'll see this pattern a lot. The goalie goes down, floats, knee spread, he widens, and then a face plant to save his groin, especially if he doesn't have the flex or doesn't want to use it. Here, Demko's slight push off the post turns into a full widening out, and he falls back, an even uglier version of the face plant. That is a ton of stretch from such a small move. But that's what happens on these post plays. A slight push off the post can be very hard to stop, almost impossible in a scramble. You can't always use it, and it's a tough stretch, but the best move for this is the post-to-post spread that anchors your feet, sort of like this. Here's Vasilevsky back in top form and using both posts to hold the line. I'm pretty sure this is the next big move, a must-have, but you have to get serious about your stretching. A more subtle problem is the floating pause, and it drives me nuts. You'll lose a split second because you're spreading and floating and need time to stabilize before repoing your legs for a push. Here he lands at the edge of the crease and drifts about a foot to the left before a desperate push. When you go down, you'll drift. It was these smaller slides that drove me nuts and got me working on a solution. Now let's look at some of the more obvious landing gear problems. Here's a great push off from an RVH. There's no doubt he gets some distance. And you can get some wild spin. But you'd better be careful because both will easily take you out of position and out of the net. And then there's the problem of sliding back. Sometimes it will be from your own momentum, sometimes from even minimal contact. When you go down, you'll drift. And sliding forward is a big problem. Trying to corral a rebound can be a lot of trouble because if your feet aren't braced by an edge or the post, you're drifting on your landing gear. So as soon as you reach forward, an equal and opposite reaction slides your legs back, usually ending in a faceplant. I hated this as well, and when I tested an early version of Overdrive 2, it was fantastic being able to stay put and simply reach for the puck. I stuck with the play and had range, whereas before I felt like I was hanging onto the play by my fingertips. More later. When you're floating on your knees, face plants are tough to avoid, especially in a scramble. So you'll get a lot of neck and back arching, but falling forward does relieve tension on the groin and psoas muscles. It doesn't take much, just a bit of width and then some forward lean gets it started. Strategically, you're in a hopeless position, and the feeding frenzies that are becoming a big part of the game always include a floundering goalie at the bottom of the pile. At least with a faceplant, you're still sort of in the crease, but sometimes the slide can take you right out of the play. I'm seeing a lot of goals on open nets these days. These plays often include a lot of stress because you're being split in two, one leg sliding back, the other leg reaching out. Allmark played way too much in 23, and by the playoffs he was injured, kind of like Demko in 24. He was a butterfly slide right on a one-timer that deflects down off the D, and his reaction to the tip or the slide looks odd. If you're playing hurt, you're playing tight, and in the middle of a play, even a slight readjustment can overload something. He tries to widen left, and somewhere in there is a tweak. His butterfly width is not even, favoring the left leg, and as he slides through, he has to adjust left for the tip with some knee spread. Not that much, but look at his reaction, how he compresses. That is not a normal goalie reaction with the puck and the player to his left. But as puck instinct returns, he widens left for the rebound, wider because of the slide, and it doesn't help that the player bangs his pad. We'll see that injuries can happen on the simplest plays because of repetitive stress. We'll also see that injuries often happen on a second identical play, a second hit on a player, a second stretch by a goalie, and the injury point can be very subtle. Here's Logan Thompson cutting short a fantastic season on a multiple move play. His right foot slipped out on that third move. At the end of this video, we'll look at some skate problems, and this is one of them. Without overdrive, you can be good for one move, maybe two, but three hard moves in a row can lead to skate wobble, weak edge control, and boot outs. So far, this excess sliding is an equipment problem, and you can fix it by putting old leather on your landing gear. That'll slow the slide. A while ago, I worked on a period movie and had to wear old Cooper GP95s. My first butterfly slide was my last. I stuck to the ice and flipped over. I spent the rest of my camera time flopping, which was surprisingly effective. But your equipment problems are players' solutions. They spend all game looking for your weaknesses, and it didn't take them long to find out that you're very easy to push around when down. Since you're basically afloat on your landing gear, when a player touches you, you'll move. They just have to brush against you, and they take advantage of that. They become very good at hiding minimal but effective contact, especially if your D is on them. And they're expert at skirting the crease to take a piece of you. or cruising through on the pretext of a rebound. Look where he puts his stick, just for a split second. And then there's a pitchfork with a can opener. They know you'll slide, so they try to shake the puck loose. And the diving pitchfork. And pushing the pad is a big favorite. Do you think he was pushing the pad here? Straight into the crease with both feet, snow spray and a shovel. Just for the refs, they stop outside the crease with a fancy snow spray, and then continue into the crease for a friendly bump. Shilov will be a great goalie, but hanging back here is a mistake. He has to poke, and it's easy because the player's on his backhand with one hand on his stick. He can barely control the puck. Besides, the D is doing his job, so don't waste his effort. Teaming up on these plays is part of working with your D, and it should be practiced. And more pitchforking. On some of these plays, it looks like the goalie's getting mugged. You don't have to be near the puck, just give the pad a shove and it will open things up. Hooking the foot at the ankle of the pad works nicely too. The crease doesn't mean what it used to. Forwards can ignore it until you step out, and then it's open season and always a good goal. And a lot of what the players are doing is hard to spot, or within the rules, or now borderline. So don't expect the refs or rules committee to help much unless it's over the top. And your D can only do so much because their workload is way up with all the goalmouth feeding frenzies. Here's a slick play that suits the current game. Bounce a tip to the net and go dig a rebound out of the mess. Those super stiff trappers make it tough to smother a lively puck, but Jones gets it under control in a tight butterfly. Then he widens out his left leg to stop the slide, which opens up a hole where some pitchforking might pay off. It's a good play. The Leaf D reads it nicely and follows up by making him pay the rent. And the league won't help you because those scrambles have entertainment value, which many games lack. I'm not sure if this is hockey, but it'll keep them watching until the next gambling ad. In fact, the NHL bumped up the scramble factor by streamlining the pants and upper body pieces, so you get a lot of these. and these, which you never used to see. But the NHL is okay with this. They like goals, even if the thrill factor is low, like on all the screens, tips, and deflections off a body that fill the score sheet. You can try complaining about smaller equipment and all the interference and players cruising through the crease, but to the league, goalies are still a big problem. They're better than ever and improving every year, so the goals are very hard to come by. On most nights, it is very tough to beat a goalie on a clean shot. Forwards are improving every year as well, but so are defensive systems. It's rare for a team to register even 40 shots, so players are reduced to patrolling the crease like a pack of starving wolves, waiting to pounce if a puck shakes loose. I don't know how the D feels about this mess, but the goalies seem to be putting up with it all. Players crashing the crease and shoveling away, diving into the net, taking a leap of faith, pushing your D into you, falling into you like a stuntman if you step out of the blue paint, knowing no play review will save you. They're really getting bold, kind of like junkyard dogs. And taking a piece whenever they can. Islanders did nothing about this, and they lost ugly. I wouldn't stick around with a team like that. Goalies have adjusted well to it all. The equipment rulings, composite sticks, players unloading from anywhere, the feeding frenzies. They're also putting up with the excess slide, but I don't like it at all. I see problems everywhere, and problems have solutions. Now I'm going to take a break for another equipment rant. Only one, although I could really unload. It concerns the pads. Watch this. Several factors contributed to this goal. First, goalies wear the pads loose to rotate as they go down, so if a puck hits hard enough, they'll rotate for a swinging door effect, especially if you're not square, which happens often. This would not have been a goal if the outside roll was a proper shape. I first noticed this problem years ago with a pair of Bryans. I went down in a butterfly, made the stop, but the puck climbed up and over my pad and into the net, like a mouse scooting into a hole. The outside roll was triangular, like Prosvetov's Bauer's, and I soon learned that it served as a launching pad for pucks, made worse if they came in at an angle or my pads over-rotated. CCM has a better roll, Vaughn is okay-ish, Warrior has the best one, and Bryans has the worst, it's barely there. Years ago, when a skate company was interested in overdrive, they bought a pair of Patrick Roy Cohos and asked me to try them out. They were okay, and the outside rolls were big and soft, which was good, but that upper thigh treatment was very interesting. I thought it should continue around to the inside corner to minimize that barn door effect of pucks hitting the top inside corner and scooting through. I still think that. And here's True with a weak outside roll, and Kochetkov with a pop-up. And here's the point of impact. Here's Skinner with a similar pop-up, and then he gets that floating, widening, falling forward feeling. The outside roll should be able to control these better, and there is a way to really control them. You can see the slight pad rotation at the end. That Patrick Roy outside roll would have helped Bob's in the Cup final because he had a few squeakers despite playing everything perfectly, with the puck nicking his pad and dropping behind. And again, you don't drop your arm right to the pad, but a hard thin edge on that outside roll might have redirected those nicks more in his favor. And another, these must have driven him nuts because he did everything right. Pad looseness and rotation contribute to pop-ups, like this, but an element of the old design would limit this. The puck hit the middle of Varlamov's pads and climbed up because of the hard smoothness of the pad face, which old-style ribbing, or something like it, would reduce. Pads today are okay, but they're missing out on some neat tricks, and the NHL rules have locked in the landing gear mess, which contributes to injury, or at least pain. When you drop, this mandated break can sometimes focus the knee impact on the small square, which can swing out like a barn door and land first, hitting like a ball-peen hammer. If the landing gear were all one piece fit to the leg, the shock of dropping would be spread all the way down the shin. This sounds minimal until you add up how many times a goalie goes down in a game, a week, a month. It's in the thousands, many thousands. Now let's get back to the point of this video. The slide of the landing gear is essential but causes a lot of problems. So what can a goalie do? Well, for one thing, you can stay on your feet a little longer. I'm going to do a video about staying on your feet with the idea that staying up for that extra split second is probably the most valuable move you can learn. Or, as I sometimes put it, doing nothing is the hardest move in goaltending. And it will save your body a lot of stress. Of all the goalies out there, Bobrovsky seems to be working on staying up the most, and he's making some very impressive saves. These are super difficult because you also have to be able to read the play and know what's coming. He's a very creative goalie and definitely worth watching closely. I always personalize my trapper because I don't like any of them out there. I basically do open heart surgery to adjust them for fit, flex, and protection, which also helps a lot with pop-outs. And as with his poke checks, he keeps at it even if he gets beat once in a while. Here's Wall staying up that extra split second to own Ovi with a great low-stress save, hands out in front, stick in place, perfect. And Stolarz with a super one to the trapper side, very slick and easy on the body, with only the landing gear slide that you need. Staying on your feet is nice in theory, but the fact is that even the best go down early, and it'll happen to you a lot because your programming easily gets crossed up. Let's call it the fast-slow problem, a huge subject that I'll only look at quickly. If you want to stop a shot from in close, you have to be hair-triggered to move on some very fast pucks, often reading the shooter's slightest twitch. This is an even better save than it looks because the D's stick launched the puck. When a shooter has passing options, you have to hold that hair trigger while mentally preloading for a move. On breakaways, you have to keep that hair trigger for a shot, preload for a lateral move, but also stay loose through a shooter fakes and twitches. It's a very tough balancing act. Here's Shesterkin dropping on a shot fake, but pulling off a very rare breakaway recovery for the save. Good goaltending in sports in general consists of finding that mental balance between staying calm and keeping razor sharp. But goalies can easily hit mental overload because the signals come at you like highway traffic. From the puck carrier, proper or off wing, his speed, angle of approach, who's with him, proper or off wing, how are they covered, and what is your D doing? What play pattern is it, and how do you work these ones? At the same time, you'll be inwardly focused, checking your depth, your angle, your width, your hands, but be careful because focusing inwards can literally blur your vision. I love play analysis, so let's quickly look at this one. The player's on his off wing against the board, so he has a terrible shot angle. Plus, he's well covered and about to be run into the corner, so Bob should be a spectator on this one. The number one threat from a player this far on his off wing is a cut and shoot, a standard play that the D misses badly, and suddenly Bob's has two big problems. The left D is out of the play, so the right D has to cover into the slot, leaving Sagan on his offering and perfectly lined up for a one-timer. The player opts to shoot, a good option because his body, the stick, and the puck are perfectly lined up to unload with a ton of torque. Look at Bob's position. It's a perfect read. Top of the crease at the left side of the net, because more often than not, all of that shooter's torque will pull the shot, also making it tough to keep low. Notice Bob's trapper. In a split second, a flood of information came in when a nothing play turned into a doubly dangerous scoring opportunity, but Bob's is all over it. Good goalies kill a play dead. They lift their D and flatten the other team, especially if you make it look easy by staying up. But staying up requires that you read the play and read a shooter, which is why doing nothing is the hardest move in goaltending. Practice automatizes moves to reduce mental traffic, but even for the best, there's always so much going on that you'll be as twitchy as a squirrel. Making things worse is the fact that goalies have to play as wide as their skates allow, which drops the boot almost to the ice and puts you one mental slip away from booting out. And then you hit your landing gear and really widen out. It's a wicked combo that contributes to obvious strain and eventually adds up to injury. Again, the problem often starts with the skate giving way, losing an edge and booting out. Pure boot-outs don't happen often because goalies know what their skates can do, so they work around it. But sometimes the play forces them to overload their skate and they lose their edge. Remember that these goalies are wearing the best skates available with a custom fit, with sharpenings exactly how and when they want them. They have elite athlete legs and they work their moves every day. They're getting the most out of goalie skates that you can, but it's not enough. This snow spray indicates a partial boot out. The skate slips backward but is still digging in, so it kicks up snow. It indicates lost power sent in the opposite direction, and a backward slip widens you out that much more, sometimes with a wicked jolt to the groin. The snow spray and slipping is very hard to avoid because the play often widens you out to the limits of your skates. And as you widen out and your skate rolls closer to the ice, the main blade then cuts lower into the ice like a chisel, taking up shavings, sliding back, and lowering you into a boot out. If you're very flexible and have control of the move, the new skates allow you to get quite low and complete your push before you get much spray or backward slip. Here's Georgiev with a super push and only a bit of backward slip on his left foot. And here's Shilov, whose movement is right up there with Luukkonen's and Levi's. He gets a fantastic push from a very low angle, a bit of spray but no backward slip of the foot, and widens right out for the save. This is the best you can get from the new skates, and it's very good, but it's a move for healthy young goalies with superb flex. You'll also need a ton of strength and control because it's very risky. You are millimeters from a slip at extreme width, and something as simple as a groove in the ice can blow out your footing. And the danger really increases when these super wide moves happen back to back, which only a few goalies can do. Here's a great pop-up and push, but Shilov's left foot slips on the reverse push for the OT goal. We'll see more of this skate wobble shortly. Here's an example of tweaking something on the second move, and like the Elmark clip, I'm guessing. Here, Levi makes the screen save with a wide butterfly and again does a very wide pop-up straight into a push. He slides right and tries to reverse with another wide pop-up and push left, but that is a ton of stress times two. I don't know if any groin can take that for long. He only does half the move before compressing into the pose that indicates a tweak, a reaction to pull the groin and psoas together. Actually, those moves are not double, but almost quadruple. Here's a double move, a combined pop-up and push, at extreme width, boot almost to the ice. This is a super tough, super stressful move, across the crease and inches from the highlight reel. Not many goalies can do this. It's the best I've ever seen, and it's too bad Levi doesn't have the protection of overdrive so we can see this superb movement throughout his career. And then you'll sometimes slip on a nothing move, which also comes as a surprise with a sharp tug. I'm seeing a lot of slipping in that overlap position. Here's Georgiev losing his footing and going down with the chest straight. And again, loading for a big push and the right leg slipping. Here's Lion with the standard series of moves, but that lean back into the side looks like it pulled something that was already too tight. He took the warm-up and felt good enough to play, but it's a very tricky situation with a straight chest. Let's keep this pose in mind because a ton of injuries have happened right here. Chest up, knee spread, one leg widening out, and there's that left leg sliding back. And that second stretch definitely did not help, which included some landing gear knee spread. Here's Ottinger wisely getting off the ice. The casualty list for this pose is very long. Most of the time it's a nothing move, but if you're carrying an injury, the widening and then that pushing leg slipping back and behind can pull the core tight. At this level, the stress on the body is very high, so most goalies are carrying some kind of nagging injury, and the trigger can come on the simplest plays, because so much of goalie movement works against the natural movement of the body. And here's Brossois back in the league and getting another chance in the 23 playoffs. It's very easy to walk yourself right back into injury, not just because they're chronic, but also because the moves are a chronic irritation. Yes, overdrive mostly solves this problem, but they're also missing out on one or two neat tricks to help this, but I don't have the time or the money to develop them. In an indicator that he was already hurting, here's an earlier play where he defaulted to the old style splits for safety. This move is not in any goalie's repertoire, but you can see that reversing it to his right turns it into a backdoor move for your safety. Here's Malcolm Subban's career getting a serious jolt right at the beginning. He needs that right leg kick, but his left leg slips back against the move and is not only wasted motion, but it also pulls the core tight when your chest is straight. Notice how they cave the chest in as a reaction. And Shesterkin, who has superb flex and doesn't even widen out much here. And Grubauer again. You don't have to get very wide because you can injure a muscle at any point along its range of motion, even flex tight and fully loaded. We'll look closer at the mechanics of injury in Part 2, but I have to wrap this up, and I'll do it by looking at some skate problems. On the website, I've mentioned many times that overdrive helps you stop on a dime, and I think it's a huge advantage. The triangular shape of overdrive and the main blade form a solid platform to grind the foot into the ice for not only a very hard stop, but also a solid reverse push. Sort of like this, but with a little more control. But not like this. Stopping and pushing off are two sides of the same coin. But notice the skate wobble. It's a big problem because every left or right wobble takes you on or off your working edge, the inside edge, hence the blade chatter. Demko doesn't overplay this. It just takes so long to stop and reset that he's behind the play. He needs better skates. He's got the legs, but he's not in control of his edges. You need pinpoint control of that edge, and these goalies are not getting it. On these two, it looks like the wobble took Georgiev off his edge and into a slip-out, followed by some precise pitchfork action. Super sharp edges will not fix it. They'll only stick your feet and increase the blade chatter. And at this level, the problem is not poor ice. It's a skate problem. They don't fit properly, or rather, they're not made properly. They're too loose at the ankle, hence the wobble. Here's something interesting from an earlier clip. It's Bob's skate, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like he's not using the top two eyelets, creating a lot of room from his ankle to the back of the skate. He's not crazy. Goalies need the entire range of ankle mobility to allow not only for a low crouch, but also a tippy-toe flex of the foot as you push off. Anything less is a compromise, and not using the eyelets or looseness at the ankle will introduce some lively wobble to affect your edge control. And since goaltending is mostly lateral movement, there's no way to avoid that, especially at the speed these guys move at. Bobs would really have to lock down the lower part of the foot, or it would feel like he's wearing sandals. And one buckle like on the Bauer Connect will not do it. So the best goalie in the world can't get goalie skates that suit goalie movement. I thought I made ankle hinge and boot height clear on the website, but we'll look closer in part 2. And maybe the skate companies can make use of that info like they did when I long ago posted the basic geometry of boot height and boot width as factors affecting mobility. It's all there on my About Your Skates page and the page on the old Graph Cobra, which led to things like this, and this, and this. And then they removed the shell entirely to get to full effect, but it's not enough. Goalies using the no-cowling skates still need overdrive, as we have just seen. Here's the latest True model, and they've made the boot as narrow as possible and the blade as high as it should be for as good an angle of attack as you can get. It's nice, and you can see that they went even further and reduced the width of the skate at the ball of the foot. And as long as that carbon fiber adheres to the plastic, everything should be good, although I've heard that it doesn't always. Another concern of mine is that they have two widths of boot in that crucial area, shown by the red and blue arrows. The skate will drop to the lower angle offered by the red arrow, and then as the foot rolls through a push-off, it will hit that higher area of the blue arrow and possibly boot you out. The foot has to move smoothly through the green line area. That blue line area is important for a variety of moves. A different width can almost be like having a bald spot on your blade. Maybe you'd be better off with the Bauer Connect, which has a smooth, narrow toe area, and they've attempted to solve the fit problem at the ankle with a hinged boot. I experimented with variations of this kind of boot for about 10 years and did a review on the About Your Skates page. Lang, which made ski boots, did it first, followed by Daewoo and Micron, and it's a gutsy replay by Bauer, but I wish they would have done a better job on that hinged upper, and I'm no fan of the buckles, and I have good reasons for not liking the foamy insert. The skate is getting mixed reviews, which is too bad because a poor implementation could end up killing the right idea. In part 2, as well as looking at injuries, I'll look closer at these and goalie skates in general, because it would be nice if the companies finally understood the movement requirements of goalies. I'll show that they are even more complex than those of figure skaters. And maybe I'll also take a look at how I solved the landing gear sliding problem. I'm pretty sure that in the videos I was testing an early version of Overdrive 2 that didn't work as well. So that's it for part 1. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll try to be quicker on part 2.